community, and we'll save it there for as long as we can. And so we want to welcome our audience here on Thriving Thursday Live. And we was just talking about these social media platforms. Welcome. We got a full house. I mean, all four quadrants here are on. Yes. And so it's Thriving Thursday, and we are live. And we want you to go ahead and click. We want you to like. We want you to hit the notification so you don't miss any of these episodes that we have here. And we talk about everything: financial literacy. We talk about health and well-being, and of course, we talk a lot about housing. And so we're trying to build that community to make us all more stable in our housing situation, but also financially fit, and we're going to talk about physical fitness too. We got an event coming up next week we're going to talk about at the end. And we're going to have everyone that you see on screen here tonight is going to be there next Saturday. And so we're getting ready. And so go ahead and like, share, and I want to welcome everyone in to Thursday night. Go ahead, Charlene, say hi to our audience out there.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. As Larry said, thank you for popping in for our Thriving Thursday chat. Before we get into our conversation tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about First Home Alliance, who we are, what we do, services that we provide, where we provide those services. And if you stay tuned to the end of the conversation, you'll find out how you can get in contact with First Home Alliance. So, First Home Alliance, we are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency established by our president and founder, Mr. Larry J. Laws, in 2002. He served his country, retired after serving the country, served the community. Where, why? His mother purchased her first home at the age of 65. And so, again, I always say this, that intrigued the family. And that intrigued me, too, because that just lets you know that there is no expiration date to home ownership. It doesn't matter how old you are, that you are able to purchase a home. And so, again, after his mother purchased a home, that, really got the family, or at least Mr. Laws, excited about the whole concept, and he was able to open the nonprofit. What are our mission? What is our mission? Our mission is to increase sustainable homeownership to low to moderate family. Also, we want to serve our veteran community. The services that First Home Alliance provide is pre-purchase counseling. What is that? I want to buy a house. I Googled it. I still don't know what that actually means. We will assign an advocate to you as an individual to help you build your home buying team and understand the process in itself and see what's affordable for you and your family, what product works for you and your family. So that's our pre-purchase counseling. Loss mitigation services that we offer. Loss mitigation, what does that mean? I own my house and things are getting a little tricky, a little tight, but I want to keep my home. Same thing. You're assigned an advocate on your behalf that's going to help you do what? Number one thing is to make sure that you prevent foreclosure. But in the interim, we're trying to get you in a more comfortable situation if we can. And so, again, that's our loss mitigation services. We also provide rental counseling. We're going to speak to that landlord on your behalf, see what we can come up with to help you sustain that lease agreement. Also provide debt, budget management, credit counseling, and emergency preparedness services as well. Now, where are these services offered to the public? We are in Woodbridge or Virginia, Maryland, as well as the South Side of Chicago. But again, you hear us say this over and over and over again. It does not matter where you're located. Due to technology, we can help you anywhere. I had some clients go on vacation. I'm still talking to them through WhatsApp. So it doesn't matter where you're located. First Home Alliance can assist. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back to Mr. Laws to get this conversation started tonight. Larry?
All right. Thank you, Charlene. All right. Well, again, I want to say welcome. And if you haven't hit the notification bell, go ahead and do so you not miss any content. All right. And so this evening is our second part series, and it's going to be a 4-part series. So I want you to continue to tune in every Thursday. But this series that we have here is a very important series. And just it's amazing in reference to our homebuyer workshops and a lot of the questions that we get following after the workshop and even during the workshop. This section is the section to get the most questions and the most intrigue, because most people never met a home inspector. Some of them haven't heard. They heard about home inspections, but we're here to empower you, and we're talking to a family, a couple that has been in the business for a number of years and have done thousands of home inspections. And so we have Tim and Addie from Housemaster, and welcome back again, Tim, and welcome, Addie.
Well, thanks, Larry. It's great to be here, and I look forward to helping you with talking to your guys about this and the First Home Alliance and the Thriving Thursday crowd. It's a pleasure to be here. I love volunteering my time to help you guys out. I wanted to start off. I also want to introduce my wife. This is my wife, Addie Fisher. She's joining us today.
Hello to everybody. Thank you for allowing us to come in.
Super. Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, welcome.
So last week we talked about what a home inspection was, the process of doing a home inspection, and answered some questions about that. Today I'd like to start off by finishing up a little bit of that conversation. We talked about what a home inspection was, which was a limited time and scope evaluation of the readily accessible components of the house. But now I want to talk about what is a home inspection isn't, because that's almost as important. There's a lot of misconceptions about what a home inspection is and what it isn't. And so first, there are three things that we like to say that are not part of a home inspection, or that are not a home inspection. First, it's not a pass-fail test. It's a detailed assessment of the current conditions in the home at the time of the inspection. But we don't give it a pass-fail grade. We also really can't help you decide whether it's the right house for you to buy or not. And the reason is we just don't know enough about your situation or what the price you're purchasing it at, what your skills are and things like that. So we can tell you lots of information about the condition of the house, but as far as advice for buying the house, your realtor's in a much better position to help you with those types of questions and help you make those decisions. The second thing that we want to make sure that you understand is not a house, is it's not an insurance policy. A home inspection is limited to what you can see on the day of the inspection. We can't guarantee what condition it'll be the day after or a year later. And when we do the first home alliance classes, they talk about one specific thing where they say the home inspection is good only for the day of the inspection. And what I'm trying to say is it's not that you throw the report away the day after the inspection. It's still valid information, but we can only tell you what we can see on the day of the inspection. So if it's not raining, I can't tell you that it's going to not rain that day. If the carpet's not wet, I can't tell you that the carpet was wet 2 weeks ago and that there's a bunch of mold growing underneath of it. So I can only tell you what we can see and what's readily accessible. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is the home inspection. The third thing is it's not a to-do list for the seller. So just because we identify conditions that need to be addressed in a home inspection, it doesn't necessarily mean that the seller has to fix those. That has to go into the negotiation process. So we always recommend that you think very judiciously when you get the final report and focus on the items that are most important to you, so that you have a chance to. There's no perfect home, and there's always going to be things that need to be corrected. Even in the house that I live in now, ask my wife; she'll tell you there's a long honey-do list of things I have to work on. But the important thing is that you take care of the biggest safety issues, the biggest issues that might be expensive, or the things that you just don't have the expertise to handle. And you focus on those items as you go through the negotiation process with the seller. When you're shopping around for a home inspection, HUD wants you to interview home inspectors and find home inspectors you're willing to work with before you actually get into the home inspection process when you buy a home. The reason is you don't have a whole lot of time after you sign that contract. You probably only get 5 to 7 days from when you sign your contract before you have to have the home inspection complete. And so you don't want to spend that time shopping around then. You want to do that early in the process. Start shopping around early. Call the local home inspectors in your area and ask them these 10 questions from HUD. If you Google it, you can find the full list of 10 HUD questions they recommend you ask. But that allows you to go through the process of actually selecting 2 or 3 home inspectors that you're willing to work with. And that way, when you get your final contract signed, you can immediately call them and find out who's available and make sure that hopefully at least one of those is available at the time period that you need them to be able to use them for the home inspection. And so the questions that HUD wants you to ask, make sure that you trust the people that you talk to and that you understand what they're talking about, that they talk in plain language, but ask them questions. How long have they been a home inspector? How many home inspections have they done? Do they specialize in residential inspections or commercial inspections, which are actually completely different types of inspections? And so you want to make sure that you have somebody that is a specialist in what you need them for, which is residential home inspections for this. You also want to make sure that they're licensed. If licenses are required in your state, in Virginia, it's required to have a license. If they don't have a license or it's not in your state, it could be a huge mistake. I helped one realtor who was selling a house, and she got this home inspection report that had, you know, crazy stuff in it. She didn't know what she asked me to take a look at it. I didn't read the report. The one thing I did is I looked up the guy's license and discovered that the home inspector wasn't licensed in the state of Virginia. He appeared to be licensed in Maryland, but I don't know for sure. But more importantly, that buyer lost their ability to negotiate any repairs because they had completed their inspection and did not have any time left in their contingency to finish the inspection with a licensed home inspector in the state of Virginia. That can be a terrible mistake. Also, you know, ask them if they're willing to do repairs on the house as part of, you know, if they've done a home inspection on it. You know, I think it would be a great advantage to have a home inspector who does repairs. But what that turns into is, instead of a home inspection, that turns into a high pressured sales pitch. It's one thing to say the roof needs to be replaced. It's quite another thing to say, and I can replace it for $5,000. Then you've changed it from a home inspection to a high pressured sales pitch. And that's a conflict of interest. In Virginia, we're actually not allowed by law to do home inspections for property that we've either done repairs on, or to inspect properties, or you can't do repairs on homes we've inspected, and we can't inspect houses that we've done repairs on for 12 months. So it's important to make sure that there's no conflict of interest there. Other questions, you want to make sure that you know how long the inspection is going to take. Make sure that they're going to allow you to be there. You want to be there firsthand if at all possible, so you can learn about the property, not only the conditions. You may hear things you've never heard before, and if you see it, it can make it a whole lot easier to understand than reading something in a report with just a little picture in it. And so it's really important to understand that. It also gives you a chance to learn about the condition of the house, like where the electrical panels are, the thermostats, and all the components for operating things. And the home inspector can talk not only about the conditions in the house, but how to operate it and their recommendations for how to maintain it as well, so you can keep it in as good a condition as possible. Of course, you want to ask how much the home inspection. Sorry, am I back on?
Yes, you are.
Sorry about that. I don't know what I did. I hit something. So the for the home inspection, you just want to make sure that that you know how much it's going to cost, so you can shop, you know, compare prices. I would caution you to not shop by price alone, but find out how long it will take. You should plan on being there, and you know, ask them if they'll let you be there. Short of a major crisis like COVID or something like that, you should be able to attend the inspection. Ask if they're a member of professional associations. There's a couple of home inspection associations. At ASHI and InterNACHI. I'm a member of ASHI. I'm a certified inspector with ASHI with 10 years in the business with them. And so, you know, I want to make sure that they're actually following those, because it shows a level of professionalism and a chance to actually reach out to other home inspectors. And if you ever have any questions, you can get them to help you with those types of things. And then the last thing we wanted to talk about is, you know, what should homeowners do or buyers do to prepare for your home inspection? There's a couple things that we want you to focus on. One, when you're shopping around with your realtor, take detailed notes and pictures of what you're looking at. Make sure that the house that you select, you understand what you're looking at before you get there. I can tell you two heartbreaking circumstances, and it's happened more than once, but I was, you know, all the way towards the end of a home inspection, and it was a beautiful house, but it had some things that needed to be fixed, like the roof had some really bad leaks. But when the owner got there, they didn't look at anything from the report. They walked upstairs, walked in the master bedroom, and they saw that there was no closets in the master bedroom. And they decided right then and there, without even hearing the inspection report results, that they weren't going to buy the house. So make sure that you're sure the house that you think you're buying is the one that you want to buy in advance, and look at them and take detailed notes. Write them down, take pictures, and make sure that the house that you're interested in is the one that you want to look at. Next, select 2 or 3 home inspectors that you're willing to work with. That way you can shop. You have a little bit of options if one of them's busy when you need them. Next, wear comfortable clothes when you show up for the home inspection. Don't show up in high heels and in a nice dress or a suit and tie. Because we may have to walk through the yard and through the mud or in a cluttered basement and to show you things that you might want to see in the house. Wear comfortable shoes and either slacks or jeans or khakis and a pullover shirt or a t-shirt or something that you don't mind wearing to get down and look at things. And ask questions during the inspection. It doesn't do the home inspector any good to get all the way to the end of that home inspection and realize you didn't understand anything they talked about. I had one home buyer, she waited till the end of my presentation to start asking questions. And it dawned on me very quickly that she probably didn't understand half of what I said. Had I realized that, I would have spoken in a little bit different level of detail for her, and I could have tailored it to make sure that she understood what was going on. It's a little hard to recover from that if they don't ask any questions and you just go all the way to the end. And then make sure that not only that you're looking for things, not only the conditions of the house, but how to operate and maintain it. We talked about that earlier, but know where the water shutoff is and the gas shutoff and the electrical panel and things like that. And my wife, I think she has a couple other points she wanted to make about scheduling for how you get home inspectors. When to call them and when to try to schedule them.
I can add on to that as far as, yes, when your realtor and you are ready to put an offer, you might want to go ahead. You already had selected the 3 or 4 inspectors that you're going to have online. Go ahead and call the first one on your list and find out if they are going to be available within the next week and if they can block the time for that inspection for you. Because what I've seen right now is buyers wait until the contract gets ratified. They had put 10 days for inspection time frame, and they come and they give them either 3 or 5. By that time, there is the inspector that you must be selecting might be booked. That's why we emphasize again that you need to have several online just in case that happens. Also, if you need to translation, find somebody, like, for example, I do speak Spanish, and if we have a Spanish-speaking client, I go into the inspection to translate the report. So ask that question also to the company. Do they have somebody that speaks on my language? So,
yeah.
Anyhow.
And so reaching out to those home inspectors, how far out would you suggest maybe starting a relationship with a home inspector, or getting comparing or interviewing, or however you want to make that selection? How far out?
So the realtor will tell you they are supposed to provide you at least with several names, or you can also go Google. Google nowadays give you a lot of information about anybody, and you can look about what are the reviews of those people. You should start. We recommend to have you looking at companies just before you put an offer. So maybe you're starting to thinking about buying a house now, but the realtor hasn't given you any rundown on any tour of houses. About a week to 2-3 weeks prior, start looking for those. Go to Deepwork, find the lists of inspectors, see who's there. Your mortgage company, ask your realtor. They will have some listings of anybody that they want. Now, keep in mind that they're supposed to give you are the one that are going to build your team. And that's why I also recommend that if you have a chance, go ahead and have one of the classes with First Home Alliance about first-time home buyers, because that gives you an overall view of the entire process. And you don't have to buy a house now and then, but that class is good for up to 2 years. So it's important that you start looking now. You don't have to be buying tomorrow. So that you can start building your team. The classes, what they emphasize is that you build your team with a hot counselor, such as Charlene and Larry, have a mortgage person that it can give you an idea of how much is your money power. Then have a realtor, find a realtor, a mortgage company, an inspector, and a closing company.
That's great.
When you put the offer, put a contact. I tell people, call before you put the offer to that inspection company to block the time.
Mm-hmm. That's good. It's good to have that team. And I like the idea you were saying that it's good to have before you need. you know, rather
Exactly.
than when you need and you're in a rush and you're a hurry, you're trying to get a offer put in, a purchase offer, like you fishing, you totally relying on someone else if you don't have a home inspector. So it's good
Right.
to have that home inspector, as a member of your team early in the process.
And can I say one more thing? And I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. This week, I just had a call that we're doing on Monday. I had a call for an inspection that he's going to be doing Friday. He had put 10 days, and they only give them 5 days.
Yes.
So that's what I think it's getting very competitive again. So because the sellers are still on top,
Right.
and due to the fact that we don't have enough houses available.
Yep. Small inventory here. Yes. Okay. All right, Tim.
So go ahead, Larry.
No, it's on you.
Oh, I was going to say, so moving on from this, we wanted to talk about common conditions and how the home is inspected. Talk about some big issues. As they go through the home inspection, every home inspector is required to look at all the major components of the house, but how we look at it can vary by home inspector. So as you interview them, also ask them how they inspect it. Some people always want to know, are the bones good? Is the foundation look strong? And so it's always important to make sure that they're looking at the foundation, but the foundation goes all the way from the roof all the way down to the crawl space, basement, or slab. And so those are all important parts that have to be looked at. Even the walls on the inside of the house can show signs of structural problems that might need to be missed, could be potentially be missed. In the attic, most houses have trusses, some have rafters that hold up the roof. Those are structural components carrying quite a bit of weight for the shingles and the roofing above it. So those need to be looked at carefully. The walls on the inside of the house, they're carrying the weight of the attic and transferring that load all the way down to the foundation of the house. Large structural cracks can signal significant movement. I did one house where before I got into the crawl space, I could see a pretty large crack in the master bedroom. And when I got into the crawl space, I saw why. There was literally almost looked like a river was flowing underneath the house on top of this ground, not underground. And it looked like it was already moving one of the support piers underneath the house, which is a pretty big structural problem. And so, we want to make sure that your home inspector is looking at all of those things. Structure can be big, but sometimes the indicators for it before they get to that crawl space could be, window wells around the side of the house that are too low and allowing water to penetrate, or large cracks in the wall on the interior of the house. Or in a basement, you could see bowing walls that are bowing inwards. That could be an indication that there's structural movement going on. Probably the worst house I ever inspected, when I got into the crawl space, there was standing water in there, and the main support frame was just completely rotted out, and so were a lot of the floor joists. That owner, that buyer walked away from it, but before they did that, they hired a contractor to go in there, who I only spent 15 minutes in there, but the contractor spent half a day in there and said it was an $80,000 repair that he didn't want to do because he knew the price was only going to go up from there. And we can help identify if there's a big structural issue, we can help identify those issues for you. We also look at other major components, the electrical, plumbing, HVAC systems get looked at pretty closely. Not only just the plumbing, but also the water heating and water distribution system, the drainage, the drain waste plumbing components, electrical panels. We look at how the electrical components are functioning throughout the house, but also we look at the heart of it, the electrical panel, to make sure it's wired properly and if it's wired safely. And then sometimes things have changed over time. Just this last year, the building code in Virginia changed so that now the main disconnect for in new construction houses has to be located outside next to the electrical panel. That's completely different from what we were doing just a year ago. And so now in new construction, we're going back to what we used to see a few years ago, where they put the main disconnect outside by the meter, and the electrical panel is inside the house in a different location. And those have to be wired differently, depending upon how they're labeled and where they're located, so that they'll be safe. And it's important to understand what those differences are, so we can advise you on that. Heating and cooling systems, we're going to run them through their paces as much as the weather conditions will allow. We'll make sure that they're cooling appropriately, they're heating appropriately. And then we'll also look at, it's important to make sure they're working, but it's also important how well they're installed. I mean, air conditioners always produce water, and if it's not done carefully, that can leak and cause bigger problems in the house. Aside from just a little bit of condensation from the HVAC system, it can damage walls, floors, the insulation, and lead to bigger problems. It can lead to mold or mildew growth and other things that can become much bigger problems if it's not taken care of. So you want to make sure, especially if it's in an attic, that it's got a drain pan underneath of it and two drains, not just one, two drains, a primary drain and a secondary drain. So you have some redundancy there. That way, if things go wrong, the first time you see there's a problem, it's not water stains on the ceiling. You see it leaking through the secondary drain, which can give you a big heads up to correct those kinds of things. We go through all the bathrooms. We'll go through the kitchens. We'll operate the appliances, at least look at their basic function. I can't tell you how well an oven can bake a cake, but I can make sure that all the heating elements turn on. And that's a little bit different, but we don't bring extra cake batter with us to test our baking skills during the inspection. But we do want to make sure that it produces heat when you turn it on. And so we can tell you those basic functions. Does the refrigerator producing cold temperatures? Is it producing ice? Is the dishwasher filled with water and drained properly and not leak? Is it not loose, or the drain not properly connected? The microwave, you want to make sure that it's producing microwaves, and if it has a vent fan integrated with it, we want to know where it's venting to. Is it venting inside or outside, or did somebody mess it up and not vent it to either of those locations? Sometimes people make mistakes and they put in they don't properly put the vent hood in or the microwave in a way that allows it to vent properly. In bathrooms, we're always worried about leaks, but you also want to make sure they're functioning properly. I did one bathroom where when I got to the kids' bathroom down the hall from the primary bathroom, we discovered that all of the plumbing was backwards. There was hot water in the toilet, and there was cold water on the left side of all the spigots at the sink and the tub and the shower. So it was backwards. And what a waste of hot water using that to flush your toilet each time you flush the toilet. It was kind of funny, but it was luckily we caught it early, and the builder fixed it pretty quickly to make sure they corrected it. Unfortunately, it was during their warranty inspection, so it was a year after they had been living there. But the kids didn't know any better, so they didn't say anything about it. So it was important, to identify these things to get them corrected, when you can. But we want to make sure that when you look at the electrical stuff, that we're not only testing the lights and the outlets throughout the house, making sure the switches all work. And sometimes you run across switches, you just don't know what they're for. But so a home inspection can't necessarily guarantee that all the switches are connected to something. But when we get to the electrical panel, you want to make sure that your home inspector is taking that front cover off. It's one thing just to look at the front cover and make sure it's labeled properly, but if you don't take that dead front cover off, you can't see how it's wired. A lot of homeowners who think they're master electricians and they wire it what they think is good, and they can make mistakes that can not only not work properly, but could actually be unsafe. Electrical problems could lead to fires or other issues if things aren't taken care of properly, or if they're not properly wiring in an attic, if it's not in a junction box with a cover on it, or properly secured, it can get pulled loose and lead to bigger electrical problems or even a fire. In the electrical panel, you could have overheating components that are damaged. You could have multiple wires connected to the same spot where they shouldn't be. You could have wires entering the panel that aren't properly clamped or secured in place. That can get cut by the electrical panel. So the things like that can lead to big problems in a home inspection.
Do you use any other methods? Do you have X-ray vision?
No, as we said as the part at the beginning, a home inspection is a visual inspection of the readily accessible components. So you can't see through things. So I can't look inside walls. We don't disassemble things. We may take the front of the furnace off. We may take the front of the electrical panel off, but most other covers aren't removed as part of that home inspection. What some and a lot of home inspectors do use is infrared thermographic assessments. So that's another question to ask your home inspector when you shop around. This isn't on the HUD list, but ask them if they know how to use an infrared camera and if they use it and integrate it into their inspections. And not only do they have it, but are they trained how to use it properly? I'm certified as a residential infrared thermographic investigator, and so is my wife. We both completed classes from United Infrared and the recurring training to make sure that we're current on that. I took it for the 4th time just a couple of weeks ago, and we're certified again for another couple of years. And so but if you don't know how to use it, It gives you great information, but if you don't understand what those pictures mean, what those thermal images mean, you're wasting your time. Infrared doesn't tell you anything about what's happening inside the wall. All it tells you is the temperature of the wall. And so understanding what that means is really important. Is that cold spot water, or is it just lack of insulation? Is that hot spot caused by something, a pest, or a hot wire, or the sun coming through the wall where there's no insulation again? Those are all different assessments, and they can mean something completely different. Or was it just installed improperly? It may be missing, or it may not. And so you just don't know unless you're actually trained to understand what those mean and the steps to take to confirm what those conditions might be.
What other type of inspections are that you're able to do or are available for a home buyer?
So for a home inspection, we look at the basic structure, but what we don't do is we don't inspect other, the things that are less common, and you typically have special tools. Although the infrared camera is one that's growing very brightly, but things like we inspect a fireplace, and we do what's called a level 1 inspection, where we'll look at the visible parts of the chimney and the interior and the firebox, but we can't see what's happening inside the chimney flue. So another additional inspection, if you have a wood burning fireplace, you might actually want to get a level 2 inspection done, where they put a camera into the flue and actually tell you what the condition is. I saw a home inspection where they recommended it didn't look too bad on the outside. But when they did that camera and they put it inside, they found $14,000 in repairs inside, where they were able to negotiate and get those repaired before they bought the house. So it can make a big difference if you don't, so that you understand what's happening inside there. So chimney inspections, we do a basic chimney inspection, but you want to get a level 2 inspection where they actually look inside. We're going to look at the house, but we don't inspect pools. We don't inspect sewers or septic systems. Those aren't part of the home inspection. We don't look at wells or well water systems. So those, we don't do water testing. We don't do environmental hazard assessments. We'll let you know if we see something that looks suspicious, but if you're worried about mold or mildew or lead or asbestos or radon, which are common environmental hazards in Virginia, you may have to hire a home inspector that's familiar with those and can do some additional testing for those if you want to evaluate those other conditions in the home.
So those are only for the home inspection only, but you are able to do other type of that are not part of the home inspection, like radon or septic or pool or so much.
So some home inspectors may have expertise in those areas. So if you're shopping around and you're looking for a house with a pool, find home inspectors that can also include the pool inspection. And if not, you're going to have to pay extra to have a pool company come out and do that inspection for you. Home is one of the largest investments you're going to make. So you want to look at it carefully and make sure everything's accounted for. In Virginia is considered a moderate risk for radon. If you're not familiar with radon, go to the EPA's website, www.epa.gov/radon, RADON, and read about it. It's a naturally occurring gas. It's everywhere. You're breathing it right now in tiny, tiny, tiny quantities. But in houses, it can accumulate to dangerous levels that can lead to lung cancer. And so, in Virginia, it's a moderate risk, but in Stafford County, where I happen to live, it's a high risk, actually. So just because you think it's a moderate risk for the state doesn't necessarily mean it's a moderate risk in the house that you're in. And so, always the EPA recommends all houses be tested for radon. It's not a requirement, just a friendly recommendation, but it's, they estimate 21,000 people a year died from every year in the United States from radon-induced lung cancer. That's crazy. And the test, you can do it yourself for $10 or $15 if you buy it from Lowe's or Home Depot. Or if it's part of a real estate transaction, you need certified results to make sure it's not tampered with. You could hire us or another radon tester, and we can do it as part of the real estate transaction and give you certified results. And that, there's just no reason not to know if you have a radon hazard in the house. And if you do have it, it's absolutely fixable. It is 100% fixable. Our house has radon and we got it fixed, and it's not a problem now. And so there's just no reason why 21,000 people a year die from this. There's no reason at all. Mold. Well, if you have allergy problems or lung problems, and a lot of people do these days, find a home inspector who's going to pay attention to those indicators that something like that may be happening. And if you have something that's particularly sensitive, you may want to have some mold testing or allergen testing done as part of the home inspection to confirm that, just because it looks good doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a mold or a mildew problem or an allergen problem in the house, and that those things can be tested for. And they can be cleaned up too. Mold cleanup is a little expensive. It's a big area, but it's better to find out about it early and get it taken care of than to live in it and be, have that problem festering and causing problems over time. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. But a home inspector can only tell you what he can see. So if you want investigations done for concealed fungal activity, there's special testing that has to be done to get that kind of stuff. And they can do air samples to see if there's something that might be causing a mold problem that you just can't see in the home.
Super.
And if you're on a well, keep in mind it's great that you have wells. The earth does a great job of filtering water and getting most of the stuff out of it, but it's not 100% perfect, and you're responsible for it. If you're on public water, they test it very regularly and meticulously and make sure it's safe for people to drink. But if you're on a well, that's all on you. So we recommend, do well, not only the inspection of the well system to make sure it's pumping properly and functioning properly, but make sure the water is actually potable, make sure it's not contaminated. And you should check it periodically. Every year or two, you should send a sample to a lab and have it checked just to make sure that it continues to stay that way. I can't tell you the number of times I've done water testing for people that were refinancing their loan and says, oh, my water's great. I drink it every day. And I come back a day later and say, it's not potable by the EPA's bacteria test standards. You need to have this chlorinated for safety. It's just, people just don't realize it could be dangerous and you might not even realize it.
Super. And so in this area, I guess in the Stafford area, do you get, how often do you run into some places that still have well?
Quite a bit. In the built up areas, there's not so much, but any place you start getting out a little bit further, I mean, Stafford County is one of the larger counties in Virginia. And, if you're close to the 95 freeway and all these built up areas, then there's probably on public water there. But once you spread out into these larger acreage areas where people live or further away from the freeway, it pretty quickly, gets to septic and well systems, septic systems for sewage and private wells for the water supply. So there's quite a bit of wells in this area.
Oh, so, all right.
They go as far as Fairfax County, Landau, everywhere. You'll be surprised of how many people have well. Anybody that have acreage anywhere over, and it's not all connected to public water, over 1.5 acre lots, most likely they will have septic and well water.
Okay. Yeah, so those are not necessarily huge lots either. I mean,
No.
considering the area that we're in, of course, but out outer portions of Fairfax, there are some pretty large lots out there. Yes. Okay. Yes. Well, that's very important. And so these, in reference to wells, is that how often maybe a person should, have that tested, the water tested? I know a lot of people like to wait until there's a transaction coming up. And so how often should you have it tested?
The Virginia State Department of Health recommends that you test your water for E. coli bacteria at least once a year.
But there's no requirement, so it's all on you if you want to get that done. And we see a lot that haven't been tested in years.
I should say recommendation because it's a city state. And on your septic, you should inspect it at least every 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, the
And
minimum
it's
requirement for septic is to clean the sludge tank out every 3 to 5 years. More often if it's a smaller one or if you have a large family, maybe a little bit longer. But you want to clean it out before it backs up into the house. That's always important. The wells are typically a traditional well has 3 major components. It has the well pump, which is down at the bottom of the well head, which has to be tightly sealed and well drained, and the pressure tank in the house. And so when we do a well inspection, we want to look at all 3 of those components and make sure they're functioning properly. The pressure tank extends the life of the well and helps keep the house full of water supply and gives it a drawdown amount of a little bit. It's half full of air and half full of water, so that every time you turn on a spigot, it doesn't have to turn on the pump at the bottom of the well. So you want to make sure it's not waterlogged, it's not damaged, it's not rusting. The pressure tank could be 40 to 60 to 80 psi, and if it's kind of high and it starts to get rust in it, that could hurt somebody if it suddenly sprung a leak. It could rupture and hurt somebody. So it's important to make sure they're working properly. The well pump is down at the bottom of the well. We don't pull those out, but we want to make sure it's making the minimum flow rate which in Virginia is 5 gallons per minute for modern wells. If it's an older well before the 90s, it could be as low as 3 gallons per minute. But if you have those smaller wells, you have to have a large water reserve to make up for that smaller well pump to make sure you don't run out of water when you're taking a shower or running the dishwasher or the clothes washer. And you want to make sure that it's performing properly. So you want to look at all 3 of those components. As far as testing, like my wife said, test annually if you can for a bacteria. Virginia is also a high agriculture area, so checking for nitrates and nitrites from fertilizers is important. And you also lead is a contaminant that's poisonous, and so for VHA and FHA loans, they make you do mandatory well water testing for bacteria and for lead, nitrates, and nitrates sometimes. So check with your lender to see what they recommend. Probably don't need to do lead, nitrate, and nitrate testing annually, but maybe every few years get those done. But the bacteria one, it's important. Every time you do work on your well, it can lead to contamination getting into your water supply. And because it's not chlorinated, because it comes out of the ground, that contamination could then spread through your water supply system and you don't even realize it. So if you just because if you replace the kitchen sink, you've disconnected the pipes and put them back together. If you introduced bacteria in there, because it's not chlorinated, it could stay there a long time and could contaminate your water supply. So that's why you should check it every year. And if the wellhead isn't properly sealed, it can allow pests or debris or contaminants to get into your water supply, and that can also make it unsafe.
The other reason why Virginia wants to know about your water is because if you have contamination and after you do the choking of the well, you still are having water contaminated, that's probably an indication that there's some contamination upstream, and they want to know about it.
Actually, in the well itself. Wells are great, but they could be contaminated. If they are, you may have to put some sort of a remediation system into your house, like a UV light cleaning system or a chlorination system to help take the bacteria out of it. That's absolutely right.
Yeah, very important. I didn't know there was that amount of whales in this area. It was, I've lived in areas, in Arkansas and also down in North Carolina. It was quite a bit, but I wasn't aware there was so many here in this area. Yes. And we're moving into a season now, and I know that we're talking about some of the common issues that are coming up, but the season that we're moving in, and I was speaking of that no heat, no cool. Well, actually, since the last time we talked, Tim, really, I've heard at least 3 situations with HVACs. And so, and again, it's some of those things that why do when the season change, that's the time when it's that those things start, rearing their heads.
So in Virginia, I mean, we definitely get all 4 seasons. You have temperatures that range from really low to really high. We get over 100 in the summer. We get well below freezing in the wintertime. So you've got to have a good heating and cooling system in the house. The most popular heating and cooling systems are air conditioners with gas furnaces, followed closely by heat pumps with electrical backup heat. They're both different and they operate differently. So it's important to understand which system you have installed in your house. And there's others too that are less common, but may also be like hydronic heating or oil furnaces and things like that. But the most common is air conditioning in a gas furnace, which is what I see in probably 60 to 70% of the homes we inspect. That air conditioner runs 6 months out of the year, but it only runs in the summertime. And so in the wintertime, you're not going to get a chance to test it because if it's too cold, you can damage it. But it's got to be installed properly. It's got to be connected properly matched. It's got to be well cleaned. You should get it cleaned once a year. Every time in the spring before the cooling season starts, you should get the air conditioner cleaning service. You should make sure you change your filters monthly. And every time you change that filter, especially during the months where you're getting condensation from it, put a little bit of white vinegar in the condensate drain to flush out any mold or mildew to help minimize any chance it's going to back up into your house. That can make a big difference on how it gets maintained properly. But they run, pretty much 24/7 during the summer months in Virginia, and they can produce 5 to 10 gallons of water a day as condensation. So it's important to make sure that it's draining properly and not draining into the septic system or the public sewer system because it's considered gray water and they don't want to put all that extra strain on the sewer system from every single house in the country or in the county. And so the HVAC systems, they run on different refrigerants inside them. The old ones were R22. They started phasing those out in the early 2000s. Around just in the last couple of years, they started phasing, or in early 2000s, they started phasing out a new one called R410. And now they're phasing out R410, and we're now going to R32. And so there's an even newer refrigerant that's coming out now. And so the air conditioners don't consume these refrigerants. They just use it to recycle them all the time. And so if you're low on any of that, it can make it not perform properly, but it means it has a leak and that needs to be fixed. You could go 10 or 15 years and never have a problem with your refrigerant inside the system because it doesn't consume it. It just recycles it over and over and over again. It uses it to transfer the heat in and out of the house. And so it's important to make sure that's working properly. The blowers are working and things like that. And then if you have for the gas furnace, those are combustion sources. So they could be dangerous. They produce combustion gases. They have a flame inside of them. So there's some safety features that have to be operating properly. They have to be venting properly. You want to make sure that they're that they get a nice bright blue flame and not a strange color like yellow. If it was, a bright yellow flame in a furnace is an indication that it's not working. There could be a combustion chamber that's damaged, and it could be venting dangerous gases actually into the house. So that's a key indicator for things to look at when you're looking at gas furnaces. Why do they tend to have problems? Well, they tend to have problems when they're working the hardest. So, in the middle of the summer when it's really hot out, that's probably the most likely time you're gonna have a problem with the cooling system, because it's working really super hard. If you don't change those filters regularly, get them cleaned once a year, and fix little problems early. If your HVAC guy says something's wrong, get it addressed. Because fix it early in the spring before it's running at peak operating costs, because then it's going to become a bigger problem when it goes out. Then you have to wait because that's when everybody else has all their problems at the same time. And so you might have to wait a long time to get someone out to fix a problem as opposed to getting it fixed early in the season when it's still a little bit cooler out.
We always recommend to have buyers that consider to buy a maintenance program where they come in and do a checkup, right? Like right now, when you're getting ready to use the air conditioning, and in the autumn when you're ready to start for the winter.
We have a maintenance contract.
$200 that you can spend, because they'll come in at least twice a year, and they will check out these things to make sure that everything is okay.
Super. And being in that utility room, the other thing is in there is that hot water heater. And so that thing have that faucet on the front of it. Do you really supposed to drain the hot water heater? And I don't know why I call it a hot water heater. How are you going to heat up hot water? But so it's
it's definitely a water heater, not a hot water heater. But you're right.
A hot water heater.
Well, there's three primary methods of heating water in a house. There's electric tanks heat, and then there's gas tank heat, and then there's tankless heaters, and all of them require maintenance. That spigot that you talked about on the front of it, there's a little one down at the bottom. That's for draining the tank, but there's another one near the top of the tank. That's actually the temperature pressure relief valve. And so the temperature pressure relief valve, you probably want to use both of those as you're draining it, one to let air in and one to get the water to come out. But it's important to maintain your water heater and make sure it lasts as long as much as possible. The average service life on a water heater is between 8 and 12 years. It can be 8 to 10 for gas and 10 to 12 for electric. But if you don't maintain it, it may not last that long. What's maintenance on a water heater? It's cleaning and servicing it once a year. Flush the sediment out of the bottom of the tank. If it gets a big sediment buildup, it has to work harder. The harder it works, the less long it's going to last. Inside the tank, there's what's called an anode rod. It's a sacrificial metal, probably magnesium or some other metal, that runs through the middle of the tank, and it decomposes slowly instead of the tank. And after that decomposes completely, then the tank decomposes. So every 5 to 7 years, you should replace that anode rod to make sure that it stays in that tank stays as in good a shape as possible. Some tanks are fiberglass lined or glass lined, and those can last a lot longer than regular ones. But if you don't replace that anode rod, it could definitely cause it to have bigger problems. Some water heaters are self-cleaning. That definitely helps reduce the maintenance requirements. If you get one that says it's self-cleaning, that can reduce your annual maintenance requirements. But those parts can wear out too. So, cleaning the sediment out once a year isn't that hard. It's just draining the water out of it. You turn that off first. then you drain the water out of it, and then you refill it again before you turn it on again. You never want to have a water heater producing heat while there's no water in it, or it won't last but about a minute or two, and then you'll be buying a brand new water heater.
Unless you put hot water in it, right?
No. Yeah, if it's empty and you turn it on, it will self-destruct pretty rapidly. They generate a lot of heat, and with no water in it to accept that heat, it accepts it itself, and it will deteriorate quite rapidly. It'll burn it up if it's gas, or it'll melt things if it's electric. They don't operate really well without water inside of them.
Okay.
The whole reason why we recommend for you to have to do maintain the water heater at least once a year. Let's face it, most people don't do it, but at least twice a year you can. It's because especially for Virginia has hard water. That you have a lot of minerals that they collect in there, and that's why you get that deposit at the end. And you're making, if you have a flush that is in the bottom, and that's less space that you have for the water to be.
Well, in a gas water heater, that flames underneath the tank. If you've got an inch of sediment in there, it's got to heat up all that sediment before it even gets to the water. So it has to work super hard once that sediment builds up in there. And it makes a lot of weird noises. You start to hear popping and bubbling noises if there's a lot of sediment inside. That's an indication that it's got a lot of sediment buildup in it. And just because the water heater is old doesn't necessarily mean it has to be replaced, but just know that if it's more than 10 to 12 years old, you just can't tell you how much longer it's going to last. So those ones in those older ones, you might want to make sure that you have a home warranty or something to help offset any sudden surprises after you purchase the house. And I mean, I just inspected a house just yesterday. When I inspected the water heater, the flue for the water heater was completely rusted and disconnected from the flue that went through the chimney, and the chimney that went all the way up through the roof. So it was literally venting exhaust gases into the house. I made sure we turned it off before we left. It was completely unsafe. You should not have a combustion source like that venting directly into the house. I've only seen that twice in 4 years. It's not, or 10 years. It's not very common, but if you see something like that, it's a showstopper. That water heater needs to be turned off, because you don't want carbon monoxide or other dangerous exhaust gases getting into the house. Venting is important, and you also got to check the exhaust fans. Most houses today have an exhaust fan in every bathroom. They have a vent hood over top of the refrigerator. They have dryers. If you're in a small room with a water heater and you turn on a bunch of different vents, it could actually start pulling the exhaust gases out of the flue of the water heater. That's another dangerous thing that could happen. So it's important to have somebody that take a closer look and make sure that things like that could potentially be happening. It's not common, but it can happen, where that's another dangerous way to pull combustion gases back into a house.
Not to give YouTube a bad name, but you can find that relief valve, pressure valve. You can find a lot of videos of making a water heater becoming a rocket.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole reason to have a temperature pressure relief valve is those boil water. Boiling water is what powers steam engines. So there could potentially be a lot of pressure in there, as long as you have a working temperature pressure relief valve. But if you take that valve off and just put a bolt in there, that could be very dangerous. So that's another thing, is to make sure you have a functioning temperature pressure relief valve. We don't operate them during a home inspection, but we recommend you maybe open and close them once a year also as routine maintenance on those, just to make sure that they're working properly.
Right. Well, super. I think we covered that utility room very well. And also, how important is that room ventilated? The ventilation in that room, and I put closed doors on there.
So it depends on what you have in there. If you have a heat pump with electric heat, you might get away with it keeping it tightly sealed. But if you have combustion sources in there that don't have a fresh air source, that can be very dangerous as well. You need combustion air for gas appliances. If it's a high efficiency one with plastic PVC vent pipes, it might be pulling fresh air in as fast as it exhausts. It may have two vents. If you have two white plastic pipes, that's a high efficiency furnace, but it's bringing in fresh air all the time. But if you don't have that, and it's a gas appliance in there, a gas water heater or a gas furnace, you got to have proper ventilation. I see this quite a lot. People finish their own basement and they don't pull the permit, and so no one checks. And now they put these large gas appliances in small rooms, and there's no fresh air. that can be very dangerous. It can create incomplete combustion that can lead to carbon monoxide buildup in the house. The starving the appliance of oxygen can also lead to damage to the appliances, and they may not last very long. If they're starving for air, they're going to burn at lower temperatures. They're going to build up soot or lint. They can or soot or other things inside the flue, and if incomplete combustion. The complete combustion of a hydrocarbon is carbon dioxide and water, which is great. But if you get incomplete combustion, that's where carbon monoxide gets produced. That's where other dangerous byproducts get produced, and it becomes very dangerous. And so it's very important to have louvered doors or louvers bringing in from larger rooms in the house, and not just the tiny little closet right next to it, large rooms. Think of it this way. If you have a large furnace and a large water heater, you need a room almost the size of a regular 2-car garage to provide sufficient combustion air for that. I see houses that it's a 10 by 20 room, and that's still only half of the requirement for what those gas appliances need. They need a lot of air. And so if it's not done properly, it can be very dangerous. A home inspector can let you know if you think something's bad, but you may have to have an HVAC person do the calculations and calculate the square footage to make sure you have enough combustion air for those large gas appliances.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Tim and Addie, for giving us a lot of, I would say entertaining, but definitely it's informational information to give in reference to that home inspection, and really covering that the well tonight in the HVAC. Which is great. Yes. And so really, I think we're going to get a lot out of this. The audience is going to get a lot out of it. And we want them to make sure when you start speaking of those teams and being educated and come out to a lot of the great things, events that you're all attending, but also they may want to get in contact with you to slew of questions or maybe interview or so. And so I did not update the slide, and Tim and Addie, I'll be back again next week. But can you tell our audience how they can get more information and get in contact with you if they would like to?
So if you want to reach us, the best way is through our website. If you go to www.housemaster.com, we're part of the Housemaster franchise, which is actually international. But if you put in /580 or Google Housemaster of Stafford, you'll find our local information there for our franchise. Alternatively, you can look for us on Google too. We definitely have a good presence on Google. So you can see our website and how people are rating us for our inspections as well. So hopefully that will help you understand what and also list what services we offer and things like that. So those are two great ways to get a hold of us. My wife does most of the booking. I do most of the inspection work, and so she has a phone number. I don't know. Do you want to give out the phone number, Addie?
You can call at 540-288-0869. That's our office number. And you can also email us too at Addie, ADY, Fisher, FISHER, at housemaster.com. And like he mentioned, you can always Google us, and also you can go into the website, Housemaster/580 or
Housemaster.com.
Housemaster.com/580.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Addie and Tim. Okay, Charlene, something's going on Saturday, next Saturday, and also we're going to have Addie and Tim there. Tell them what's going on next Saturday on the 25th.
All right, guys. Next Saturday we have our Community Appreciation Day. That's going to be on the 25th. It's going to be located at Veterans Park. Larry, you have the address for Veterans Park. I can't remember exactly the address. I know exactly where it is, but it's going to be located in Woodbridge. That is on the 25th. I think the event kicks off, if I'm correct, about 11. Lunch will be served by noon. Great day to come out to the park. We've been having amazing weather, so I'm hoping that we continue to have that. It'll be activities for the kids. We'll have a walk, we'll have a run. We have our vendors, our community partners. Housemasters will definitely be out there. A couple more will be out there. Great day again to come out and join us as we just celebrate our community and the people who help us to be able to do what we do for our community. Larry?
Yeah, super. Okay. And so, of course, you can follow us on social media and check out our website. That's at firsthomealliance.org. Come out. We hope to see you on next Saturday. The event information is out on the website. Please join us. You're going to see Addie and Tim. They'll be one of the exhibitors there, and look forward to seeing you. And check out our website for all upcoming events. I want to say thanks for joining us this evening, and we'll see you again next Thursday.
Next Thursday. Have a great night.
Thank you, Tim. Addie.
Thank you, Addie. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.